Cheikh Anta Diop, 1923–1986. Cheikh Anta Diop was anthropologist, Egyptologist, historian, physicist, politician, writer. Born into a prestigious French Senegalese Muslim family on December 2, 1923, Diop was one of the few privileged black African who had the option of pursuing whatever occupation he chose. Cheikh Anta Diop could have chosen to live in luxury, ignoring the disparity in living standards, also the stratification of the people, but he chose to get involved. Initially, Cheikh Anta Diop began his education at a traditional Islamic institution in his home territory, Senegal. Not disputing his religious indoctrination, Diop states that his family was not part of any of the well-known Islamic sects, but was instead from an exclusive brotherhood known as the Mouride, the only independent Muslim fraternity in all of Africa. Diop was originally enrolled to study advanced mathematics in Paris, 1946, a subject for which he had an aptitude. However, at age 23 years he was matured enough to make his own choices, although it appeared as if he may not have had enough maturity to settle on a definite career path at this juncture. Instead, he enrolled in the Faculty of the Arts in Sorbonne, considered to be the first university in the world, where he switched his focus to the study of physics. By 1948 he had earned his undergraduate degree in philosophy and once again switched to another faculty, this time the Faculty of Sciences, where in 2 years he gained 2 diplomas in chemistry. In 1957 Diop changed his specialty/major to nuclear physics at the Laboratory of Nuclear Chemistry, Collège de France, and at the Institut Pierre-Marie Curie, also in Paris. Eventually, he was able to translate parts of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity into his ethnic language. It is safe to state that most of Diop's formal education was received in Paris, France. Although he was born in Senegal, his native language was French, therefore he had no difficulty understanding his lecturers, as Senegalese was a dialectic form of French. Under the tutelage of Professor Gaston Bachelard, Diop had gone ahead and registered 2 theses, The Cultural Future of African Thought, which he intended to use for a Doctor of Letters thesis in 1949, and a second thesis title, Who Were the Pre-Dynastic Egyptians, under the guidance of Professor Marcel Grill in 1951. Although he completed the thesis for his second title based on ancient history and Egyptology in 1954, Diop had a problem finding a body of examiners to pass his work. He re-registered 2 new thesis titles, The Areas of Matriarchy and Patriarchy in Ancient Times, in 1956, and Comparative Study of Political and Social Systems of Europe and Africa, from Antiquity to the Formation of Modern State, in 1957. The last 2 titles he submitted had nothing to do with Egyptology, instead, they were concerned with types of organizations of African and European societies and how they evolved. This seems to have done the trick, as he eventually obtained his Doctor of Letters degree in history in 1960, a degree which is equivalent to a doctorate, Ph.D., in Europe. Cheikh Anta Diop was not a bashful individual, and although the documents to substantiate his claims may not be available, he claimed to have dialectics, archaeology and modern scientific techniques. He also boasted of being the only black African of his generation to have received training in Egyptology. Based on his latter publications, very few individuals questioned the veracity of his claims. He had 2 of the most highly respected scientists as his mentors, one of which was Frédéric Joliot-Curie, the 1935 recipient of the Nobel Prize in Physics. In fact, Cheikh Anta Diop is hailed as a genius, having earned 2 doctorates, one of which was in the most challenging field of nuclear physics. While some may dispute his claims regarding the other minor achievements to which he laid claims, purporting that there is not enough recorded proof of all his qualifications, there is also no records to prove otherwise. As a black African in colonial Africa, the powers that be at that time may have forgotten to credit him with some of his achievements, making it necessary for him to do so himself. Accordingly, he may not have been the first scholar of African descent to have explored ancient civilization and Egyptology. However, the fact remains unchallenged that he was the first African born to do so. After gaining his Ph.D. in 1960, Diop went back to prove his original theory, based on his earlier theses which had been denied, that Africa was the cradle of civilization and that early Egyptians were black Africans or vice versa. This theory was later dubbed the Diopan theory. In 1956, Diop did a short stint as a teacher of physics and chemistry at 2 Paris public schools/colleges, schools funded by the government, in which students are prepared for entrance into universities as a master in both fields, before moving on to continue his studies at the Collège de France. During his study of nuclear physics, Diop was able to translate parts of Einstein's theory of relativity into Wolof, his native Senegalese language. Diop assisted Professor Madeleine Rousseau to edit a special edition of the magazine, Musée Vivant, a political French journal which was established by the left wing to provide cultural information to the masses. The focal point of this particular edition was the centenary celebration of the abolition of slavery in the French colonies, also highlighting the issues in the contemporary African society. Diop shared his knowledge and his theories in several books that he wrote in French which were later translated to English. Although some of his concepts or ideologies may have been marginalized or diminished during the translation process, their potency have remained intact. His book, Civilization or Barbarism, 1981 explains the essence of Black Egypt and to expose the falsification of Black history as perpetrated by European Egyptologists. In 1974 Diop published two books, Black Africa, The Economic and Cultural Basis for a Federated State and The African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, of which the latter of the two is the more highly rated. The profundity of Diop's two-cradle theory of civilization, or the Diopan theory as it is referred to among scholars, has had a great impact on historians worldwide. In this book he challenged the authenticity of the European version of ancient history. Diop provided scientific proof that the African was the most advanced civilization in science and technology as depicted by historical remnants as the Great Pyramids, crypts and tombs which have fascinated archaeologists for centuries. He developed a technique where he was able to determine the ethnicity of an unidentified corpse by the melanin in its skin. In pre-colonial Black Africa he compares the political, cultural and social organizations of Europe and Black Africa from beginning of history to the evolution of Western civilization. There are other books written by Cheikh Anta Diop that contain a trove of information on the achievements of the Black African nations. They are all either concentrated on the pre-European invasion/occupation of the African people or pregnant with concepts on how Africans can regain its independence and be once again recognized as the greatest civilization in history.